In my world there is music and good vibes and laughter and lovers, adventure and friendship. We know who we are.
Welcome to Be the Wellness Podcast, where we help you master your body, mind, and the experience of life through insightful conversation, interviews with experts and thought leaders, all with a side of marital banter and some good old-fashioned humor.
Yes, we are your hosts, Adam and Vanessa Lambert, and we're committed to helping you live life fully expressed physically, mentally, and experientially. Sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and join the conversation. Hello and welcome everybody to this super special podcast. We are on a real roll over here at Be the Wellness with super special ladies.
A real roll.
Have you noticed?
Yeah.
We've got back-to-back pipe hitters. Proverbial pipe hitters.
Right.
I mean, I don't know, maybe they're actually pipe hitters too, but last week we had Emily Schramm on, and this week we have the awesome, the beautiful, the wonderful Teri Turner of No Crumbs Left.
Yes.
And she is a boss.
Yeah,
She's
she
a
really
kitchen
is.
boss.
A kitchen boss. I think she's probably a boss in a lot of realms in her life, but she's certainly a kitchen boss.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, she does say that her friends call her a kitchen goddess, which I totally go for as well.
Right.
But she has this thing about her where she's definitely bossing at life.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
But she's also such a sweetheart.
Right.
So it's
Well,
like...
maybe that's where the goddess thing makes sense.
Yes.
Because, like, at the end of the day, I mean, goddesses are bosses.
Yes.
But just, like, a little more, I don't know, like, nice.
You searched really hard to come up with nice. But it works.
That's how
It's good.
it
It's good.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it was the first thing that came up. I looked for something else, and nice just seemed like it made sense.
Nice is okay. So if you have not heard of Teri Turner, again, she is the author and proprietor of the No Crumbs Left website, as well as Instagram. She has a brand new book coming out of the same title. She's a master collaborator, blogger, food columnist, and she's a regular contributor to Whole30.
Right.
So maybe you've seen her over there. She, I think, said she's taken over their feed 7 different times.
Yeah.
So she really is a master collaborator and just such a lovely human being.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you guys will hear in the interview, she has like I think a really cool approach to cooking and food and just kind of what it all means.
Right.
You know, because we tend to get a little, I don't know, linear and kind of procedural about food sometimes, especially when we're talking about making changes to your diet, whether it's, you know, to sort out some kind of a health issue or if you're trying to lose body fat or, you know, support some kind of performance endeavor. We tend to kind of map everything out and make it like, okay, well, this is just a food as fuel kind of thing, you know, and I think she does a pretty good job of bringing it home.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know who else is an amazing kitchen goddess? Actually, she's actually a kitchen fairy.
Nah, I have no idea.
You will once I say it.
Okay.
Our very own chef, Joanne Stabile from Prepared with Purpose.
Yes.
She is our very own Be the Wellness master chef, and she does a lot of our events, and she will be joining us in Montana.
She will.
Which is super special for us because, you know, we love traveling internationally and we love to go obviously to Peru, New Zealand, and have all these amazing experiences. But there's also something so special about bringing our crew to an area.
Yeah.
And so bringing Angelo, bringing Joanne, getting to come ourselves and like meet people on our training ground, so to speak, you know, here in the US and have these amazing experiences with our posse, so to speak, is super awesome.
Yeah, it really is. Because, you know, everywhere we go, the food is amazing. You know, I mean, that's a big part of the Be the Wellness experience, you know, but we don't have like the familial bond with the chefs in a lot of these places.
Sure, yeah.
You know, because
we've never met them a lot of times.
or maybe, you know, we see them once a year, like the guys in Costa Rica.
Right.
But yeah, when you bring Chef Joanne in, she's part of the team.
She's part
it's not
of
just
the
the person that's, you know, making the food.
Yeah, she's cool. Mama Joe. Like she's like bringing it. You're like, you feel loved and cared for. And I mean, the moniker Prepared with Purpose is perfect because it really is. She's preparing it to nourish you, to have this purposeful interaction with how she's, creating something.
Yeah, totally. And she just has a way about her when it comes to like the demonstrations and stuff of keeping food preparation at a super high level, incredibly simple.
Yes.
It's like she's one of these people you can say, okay, well, what are the 3 things I need to know about this? And she's like, this, and this. And you're
right.
Like, and it works. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. So I'm really excited because Joanne will be there with us. If you haven't checked her out on Instagram, make sure you do. She's at Chef Joanne on Instagram, but her business is Prepared with Purpose, and it's in San Diego, and she actually does a meal delivery service.
Yeah.
And she can comply with Whole30, Paleo, Primal, whatever you're doing. And that's what's really amazing about her. She totally gets like what people have going on and can just completely adapt to them. So it makes it just easy to be with her, easy to like work with her.
Yeah. And she'll even provide you with glass Tupperware or whatever. What do you call it? Glass.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Storage
containers?
Storage
Food containers, yeah.
Yeah, because that's one of the things about meal delivery services is that you end up with stacks and stacks and stacks of these little plastic, jinky things that they're not meant to be reused. Some people do.
Yes.
But, you can't heat your food in them, or you better not be heating your food in them.
Yes.
So it's really kind of handy to have, the glass stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Again, prepared with purpose.
Yeah.
Like she's very intentful on what she's creating. So yeah, check her out. And then I'm super excited because she actually gets to come to Costa Rica with us as a guest this year.
Yeah, on like a regular old vacation.
Yeah, on a regular old vacation. So if you want to come, eat her food, come to Montana. If you want to come vacation with her, come to Costa Rica.
Yeah.
So lots of opportunity to get more Joanne. But let's get back to this podcast.
Yes.
And let's get back to our awesome guest, Teri, because she is such a delightful guest, and we had so much fun with this, and we really hope you guys will go out and check out her book, No Crumbs Left cookbook, and that if you can, you'll go out to one of her book signings.
Yeah.
She is going all around, not quite all around the globe, but all around the country for sure.
For sure, yeah, it's quite a tour.
And she's bringing out some awesome guests to join her on tour, and just a really cool... You could just feel that there's going to be some great community showing up at those events. So really encourage you guys to get out there if you can. We'll be at the one in LA, and we look forward to meeting her and just sharing that good community. And without further ado, let's get to this darn podcast because it's really good. Here is the beautiful, special, talented Teri.
And we're live. Welcome to the podcast, Teri.
Oh, I'm delighted to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. Already, just before we even went live, I already feel like so excited to talk to you in the 2 minutes that we talked before popping on live. So first of all, I want to start with, obviously, you've got some awesome things in the works. You've got a brand new book, a book tour, all that good stuff. But before we get into that, I would really love to just hear a bit about your backstory, kind of what brought you into a love of food and a love of creating healthy, nutritious, real food meals for people. So let's start there, if that sounds good.
Fantastic. I mean, I'm a lifelong passionate foodie. Started for me when, let's say, I was 18 and just leaving my house. I just always loved to cook. And the truth is that I always really loved to eat, which is where it starts from. I grew up in a family where my mother really wasn't a cook, but she was a lover of life. And really, just to see the way that she embraced life was amazing for me. So when I left home, I just really delved into cooking and entertaining and being with friends. And it's been my lifelong mistress that's taking me through births and deaths, marriages and divorce, and, all kinds of wonderful things.
Awesome.
I love to cook. For sure.
Yeah. I love that. Perfect.
Bottom line, love to cook. Yeah.
Perfect. So, Teri, in your past life, you ran events, correct?
Yes, I did. Yes.
And so I'm curious, when you were making that transition from kind of more of a corporate world, obviously anything you do, like you said before, it becomes the same. Everything's business and, everything at the end of the day is work. But how was it for you to change from sort of that more corporate structured kind of life to being your own boss?
I've always been my own boss, starting from the lemonade stand when I was 3 years old. I'm definitely an outlier. So I'm always kind of making things up as I go along, and kind of every job I've ever had is because I made it up. So that was the same thing with event producing. I, decided what I wanted to do, and I'd had been in catering and produced parties and things for people before people had event producers, and just sort of went off on my own wing, and it was a lot of fun. So I would say it's fun to try all these different things, and it's the more things are different, the more they're the same. So those skills really assist me in everything I'm doing.
Awesome, I love it. So let's talk about the book.
Okay.
I'm sure you're so excited to have this coming out. And, obviously there's a real difference between being a food blogger, being a contributor, being all of these things. But the project of taking on a book and releasing a book, how was that different for you? Was that, just a labor of love, or were you like, holy crap, what did I get myself into?
Oh, definitely the latter. I never planned to be a food blogger. I just was really sharing my joy of food and cooking, which is what I've always done in my community and with friends, my whole life. So I never planned to be a food blogger. It just sort of happened. And I was sharing organically on Instagram with my 44 followers, and an audience showed up one at a time. And all kinds of wonderful little miracles happened along the way to get me at this moment. But it was really by force. It was like we had these people following, and then I'd have to direct message with like a handwritten recipe. And it got to the point where it was like, oh my gosh, it's too much. So we decided, at that point, then Zach was working with me full time, and he knows how to make the magic happen sort of with, all the things that I don't know how to do. And so, Zach was like, well, we can't just handwrite these recipes. We've got to set up a blog. And I said, that's great, but we're never going to tell anyone. We'll just have the blog. And if someone wants a recipe, we'll give them a link, but we'll just absolutely never tell anyone we have a blog. And it didn't last very long, but it got our feet wet. And, the journey has just really kept us rolling.
Oh,
nice.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So how did you come into contact with the folks over at Whole30 and kind of start that journey?
About 4 years ago, a friend of mine said, with my partner Roy, and she said, you and Roy should think about doing the Whole30. It's a really great program. And I've done different things in my life. I've had, done things that were vegan. I've done fasts. I've done raw foods. I've done cleanses. So it's always kind of fun to try something new. And we did it. Roy and I did it. I think he lasted 12 days. I lasted 30 days. I've long been a gluten-free person just because it makes me feel better. Mm-hmm. But what I realized was that if you could eat this way all the time and it could be delicious, why wouldn't you want to, potentially, or a whole lot of the year? So I really loved it. And I did more than one, Whole30. I did more than one Whole30. And then eventually I contacted them and said, I would really love to be considered for a Whole30. To do a Whole30 takeover. I could really do something. And initially, I think Jen was like, oh, we don't know that you're going to be quite right for the page. And I say that because it's funny now because, now I've been there like 7 times. And, and I said, if you let me do this, I'm going to absolutely bring it and you will not regret it. And thus we began. And now we're, a cookbook and 7 Whole30 takeovers later. And now I do them twice a year. And I'm a Whole30 coach and I don't actually coach anybody, but I, on a larger scale, coach people all the time, right. more about life than about eating necessarily. But anyways, it was just a fork in the road, and I'm so glad that I took it.
Awesome. Yeah. I find that these paleo, Whole30, Primal communities, they're really, it becomes your family. They're not these obtuse kind of people out on the periphery. Like it really does feel like you get very connected in with these particular types of communities.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and it's a significant problem that you're solving here, I think, too. Because we're a paleo-based company for the most part, and this is something that we've been doing for a long time. And a lot of the feedback that we get from almost everyone is that, wow, this is really great, but God, I really miss eating really good food. Because a lot of times, the simplest way to get into one of these things is from a pretty reductionist standpoint. You're like, all right, we're going to cut out all of these things from your diet. You're only going to eat meat and vegetables, and you can make meat and vegetables into something absolutely incredible, or it can literally just be a piece of meat and some vegetables on a plate, And so I think that this approach and with this book, it's going to be an amazing resource for folks to be able to take something that like the Whole30, which a lot of people would consider fairly restrictive, and actually make it into something you could do longer term, especially for folks who really enjoy food as opposed to just viewing it as, something that you do.
I mean, absolutely. I really think of my food in general as sort of like celebration as a lifestyle. Gorgeous big platters, beautiful greens, wonderful dressings, fabulous magic elixirs, which are like sauces and, some condiments and pestos and all kinds of delicious food. And if you had the food, you wouldn't think at all it's restrictive.
Right.
Really, really delicious. So the book is full of those wonderful salads, of those what I call magic elixirs, those really special sauces and things. And then, seafood and breakfast. But beyond that, I was like, well, there's all of that. And there's like everyday dinner and some, vegetables and sides. But there's more that I do, which is things that aren't Whole30, things that my kids grew up with, from, wonderful potato pancakes and my grandmother's egg rolls and a wonderful carrot cake. My daughter's very favorite egg salad that, when I story it, I'll get 200 messages. It's like, how do you make that egg salad? That looks amazing. So I have all of my family recipes in here also. And I'm very proud and excited, to do that. Initially, my publisher's like, well, you really think people are going to want to know, about those recipes? And I was like, literally, when I do it, I get so many comments of people wanting to know how to do that. These simpler things that make, your cucumber salad or egg salad, my vegan chili, that just make life, kind of like a lot of fun, and just those everyday things.
I love it. And I love that you really do offer something for everyone. Like you said, you have vegan stuff, you have vegetarian stuff and paleo and Whole30. And it's just like, you really have a wide funnel for people to get in where they fit in, so to speak.
Absolutely. And it's a lot of fun.
That's so awesome. So, Adam and I do a lot of retreats, and we spend a good deal of time abroad. And we were actually just talking this morning on another podcast about how much easier it is to eat this way outside of the country. When you travel to places like Peru, or we were just in New Zealand, like, this is just food, right? They just eat vegetables and meat, and, food is just kind of easier to come by. Real food is easier to come by. I wonder for you if there's any places that you've traveled to that you've drawn on inspiration, or where do you get some of your, sort of more ethnic influences?
Well, one of my favorite places to travel is Paris. So I definitely take inspiration for the love of vegetable and crudité. And it's a lot of fun to take their, beautiful fishes that they may do in a sauce that may not work for Whole30, but then bring it Whole30. But absolutely, I'm a girl that loves a farmer's market, and I love fresh and beautiful. And Paris is definitely one of those places that inspires that.
I totally agree. Oh my gosh, it's so good. So good. So let's talk more about the book, because we were talking about it before we went live, and you said, it's really much more than just a cookbook. So maybe you could just share a little bit with the audience about what makes it more than just your average cookbook.
Well, I appreciate you asking. When you when you do a cookbook, you think they're probably going to tell you what to do, but they hire you and pay you, so they really don't. And you got to love that, because you're hiring a creative, so why not? So first of all, there's the recipes and fine tuning and making and really having a blend of things. But then I say, well, if I'm writing a book, what more do I want to say? What's important to me to put in there? What experience do I want people to have? The Teri tips are throughout the book, and over at the feed where I'm an editor, I've had a show called Teri's Tips, because I'm well known for sort of my practical everyday cooking tips that, helps with the home cook, and it helps that person who's a beginning cook really take it to the next level. So it's, of course, filled with all of my Teri's tips, which I love. But beyond that, on my Instagram, I always share a positive thinking quote every day. And so I selected my favorites, took a long time doing it. And not only, so there are everything from the Dalai Lama to Mother Teresa, to Bill Murray, to Oprah Winfrey. So all kinds of quotes that really sort of relate to the recipes, and then throughout there, I've woven stories of my own family, of my parents, and the way that they really taught us to make a difference in the world. And it was a lot of fun to do that, to really bring, my parents are both gone, and I thought, well, if I'm going to go forward, it's like, how do I bring them as part of the experience and really bring them current in the book? So tucked throughout the book are things like the roosters on napkins and fish on glasses and things that are symbols for me in my own life for my parents. So it's a little like the Where's Waldo. And if you and the truth was I didn't do it for anybody else to notice, I did it because I wanted people to really feel that love. And so it's woven throughout, from my quotes to my tips, to some family stories. And, you get a prop stylist and they bring all of these wonderful things in. And I say, well, these are beautiful. But the thing is that I really would like to have my things in there. I'd like to have my grandmother's china, and I would like to have the silver platter that was from my parents' wedding. I would really like to have these things because this book is, it's just all of this together is what really makes it special for me. So I think when people read it, they're like, oh my gosh, it's so much more than a cookbook, and you really feel the love in it. And so far, when people get it, it's like they get and they see, what it is. And it's, I love it.
I love it too. And the food photography is just beautiful. So if those are things that you brought in from your parents, then you did well.
Thank you. And I have to say, I didn't take the pictures. Tim Turner, who's a James Beard Award-winning photographer, food photographer, who did something like 80 cookbooks, and he's a man I've known for 20 years, who's been a guide and a mentor and a friend, and so responsible for helping us get to the place that we are. He did the book, and he, absolutely, as he likes to say, I bleed no crumbs left, which is, that he really has his heart and soul in the book, and he just really made the food, I'm happy to say we cooked it right here in my kitchen. We ate all of it. And he photographed it and did just such a beautiful job.
Well, so he was paid in more than just money. He was paid in delicious, amazing experience of food. Yeah, good
probably.
for him.
Yeah, probably the better piece of it. So this is something that is interesting to me because I think, and you'd mentioned that the idea that the people are asking, well, are people really going to want to see your grandmother's favorite recipe or this sort of more personal side of stuff? And I would have to say that, especially in the world of social media and where all of this, we're just kind of bombarded all of the time with these sort of ideals around food, that it can be, it can feel a little bit less than personal, so I can really see where, what you're doing here is just, you're appealing to this sense of home and this sense of, comfort from the perspective of comfort food kind of, might dilute what I'm saying, but the sense of comfort with the meals that you're preparing. Like, this is something that can bring me home. This is like actual real food. And so I could see this being, something that people really identify with. And, good on you for closing that gap. It's a challenging thing to do, to take something that can be as sort of, list oriented as making recipes and really just turn it into something that feels like home.
Well, right. And I'm not so much like a logistical kind of person. I'm a passionate home cook that I can't believe that I've written a cookbook, because everything I make just sort of like kind of make up as I go along. So if I was going to do it, it had to be in keeping really with who I am. And of course, when they hire you, they would help you develop recipes. But I'm like, no, I'm going to do that, on my own. And we had a lot of centerfolds in the book, and it ends up being like I have a collection of beautiful china, and I've taken my kind of wall unit in my family room and I removed the TV. I have racks in there, and it's filled with my beautiful dishes and, things like a plate with the fish that reminds me of my dad, and a dish with butterflies that reminds me of my mom, and a dish with an octopus that reminds me of my daughter. So it's like, every touch, from the Buddha in my yard that we photographed, they're all very, very personal pieces. And, we curated what we wanted in. And I think we worked really, really hard for a long time. And I feel like we accomplished what we wanted to. And when people get the book, they really are like, I love this. And it's so much more than just a cookbook. So it's so exciting after working on something a year and a half, to have it come alive and have people get it and love it, make things. It's just like completely so much fun for us.
Oh, I bet that's such a dream you didn't even know you had is coming true, right?
100% well said.
Right. So without giving away too much of the book, I would love if you'd be willing to share like a tip or two from your Teri's tips. Well,
one of the things I say is always let your meat rest. That is such a key, when you get your chicken out of the oven, when you get your meat, is really to let your meat rest. And beyond letting it rest, it's really, those meat juices are spectacular. Like you don't want to throw away those juices, whether you're making an au jus to pour over, putting it in the freezer and adding it to anything from a minestrone, to a rice, to in vegetables, to a salad dressing. It definitely, so great. I always, when roasting chicken breast, always do skin on with the bone. I'm sorry, skin tastes better, and really the bone in, skin on in the oven, 35 minutes, olive oil, salt, and pepper, delicious.
So simple.
Yeah, totally simple. So, I have 48 tips because 48 is my lucky number. So I literally have 48 tips, including writing your cookbooks. Pen mark spills are welcome. That's the kind of behavior that I really encourage because it's a part of your history. It's fun to look back and say, oh, when did that happen?
I totally agree. Yeah. And, cookbooks, the ones that you love, they really do become a part of your family. It's like all of a sudden you look back and you've had that for 10 years and you can, think of 20 different occasions that you had each of the recipes or whatnot. And I do think like this book just speaks to that. It just speaks like this is going to be one of your collectors that you keep for long term.
Yes. Well, thank you. That would certainly be lovely. And that's the hope.
Yeah. Awesome. So really quick, give me your top 3 must-have kitchen items for anybody out there who is, maybe not the greatest cook, but trying to get their feet wet, trying to become a little bit better about really taking care of themselves and nurturing themselves through food. What are your top 3 things that they should have in their kitchen at all time?
I would say a beautiful knife. I mean, just an absolutely beautiful knife. I would say a spectacular pan. And I always have a marinated onion bowl. It's one of my recipes that I'm well known for. And we create and curate these gorgeous marinated onion bowls. They're ceramic and they've got a spout. And so those for sure are, I would say, my top 3.
Awesome. And what kind of knives do you personally love?
Sharp. That's what I really like.
Perfect.
Yeah. I like sharp. I do like my Zwilling rocking. I think it's like Santuco, and I might be mispronouncing it. It's a great knife, and they are not sponsors of mine, but it's a beautiful knife. And not only having knives, but the truth is sharpening them. That's really important. I have a knife sharpener in my area, and we take all the knives over and get it sharpened very regularly.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that because, you can obviously sharpen your knives yourself, but there is a difference between having them professionally sharpened, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And I think most people don't know what they're doing when they sharpen knives, myself included. And so you can really ruin a knife. So I have a great little local place and I have them done.
Yeah, love it. So I want to talk about your table talks because you do have your own podcast. So tell us a little bit about the inspiration and about what folks can expect on that show.
Thank you. It's called No Crumbs Left Table Talks. It's crazy how well it's done. We're having so much fun. It started, first of all, it's not really about food. That's the most interesting part. It's not really about food, but it started because I have a daughter who identifies herself as queer, and people would see her on my page and they would want to know about that. And did she come out and what was the journey and what was our journey? And so we wanted to, handle in a way that was really sensitive, and we didn't want, social media or people on or people commenting, so it was like, oh, what are we going to do? So we said, oh, why don't we do this? Why don't we have a podcast? And Cards Against Humanity's is followers. And they said, if you guys want to do a podcast, because we shared about it on the stories, they said, come on over. And we absolutely love, to do the podcast here. So we went over and we did this podcast together, and it was called, I can't remember what it's called, One Queer, One Straight. And we talked about the journey, but Lucy really schooled me on what it was and what it meant to be an ally and sort of about her journey. It was like she schooled me. She was amazing. I kind of was dumbstruck, and she's 21 years old and very bright. And so it was just like it went viral. I mean, people had an incredible reaction, and people see Lucy on my page. I have 2 kids, No Crumbs Left kid and No Crumbs Left other kid. They have spin-off pages where they have their own audiences, if you can imagine.
Oh, that's awesome.
And people love her, and they really wanted to, know about it. So what happened was, people were like, we love that. Would you consider doing a podcast more often? So the podcast began, and I think I'm 25 into it. We don't really talk about food, but we talk about life, everything from mothering to saying goodbye to love languages, to like having, Greg Wade, from the Netflix series Sustainable, who's an amazing baker, to having Froggy the farmer. So we talk about local and in season. And today I spoke to a woman who I've known for years who's a stylist, and we talk about what that's like. So, but a lot of it is it's about love, and it's about letting go, and it's about transitioning, and it's about death and life and birth and divorce and everything in between. It's like, we are no experts. We're just on the journey, and we're talking about it. I invite people that I like, and we just, we have a lovely conversation. So it's been so lovely for me because it gets me out of the kitchen, and I turn off my phone and I simply do the podcast, and it's been fantastic. So well received. People love it. And I'm really, I'm totally having a great time doing it.
Yeah, I think that's really cool because at the end of the day, those are the things that you actually talk about around the table. You know what I mean? Like, nobody sits down to dinner and talks about the ins and outs of, whatever magic sauce you made. It's always, the food is always a conduit, so to speak, for community. And that, I think, is it's a really interesting combination that it's no wonder that it's resonating with folks, because I think it's they're just, they're pretty common bedfellows, right?
Absolutely.
So, Teri, I almost am nervous to ask because I don't know how much more you could take on, but what is next for you?
Isn't that interesting? So right now, it's so busy because we've got brands and sponsors that we're working with. We don't take on any more that we can, really do comfortably, but we've got some great brands, and we tend to work with people more for like a year, and which is a lot of fun because you really get into the product and you can really make a difference for the brand. So that's been really wonderful. We've got the podcast, clearly, we've got the book, the blog, and now we've got the book tour. So, it'll be a chance at the end to reevaluate and say, okay, what here do we love doing? And of course, and we've got the whole ceramic and pottery line, which has exploded. So it's like, what do we love doing? What do we want to do more of? What don't we enjoy here?
Right.
What makes sense for us? So we're going to, one thing I'd really like to do is I'd love to speak at women's conferences. It's a lot of fun doing that. And I would like to do more of that kind of thing. I like traveling with brands. That's a lot of fun. So I am all about doing more that I love, but I'm also going to really be happy to get back in my kitchen and just get back into creating daily content for people. And, I love the people that follow along. It's nearly 300,000 on Instagram, over 400,000 on Facebook, an incredible blog with lots of views. So I love those crumbles and followers that show up, interact. We have a super interactive page, and I love all of that. I love that life celebration. So I'm going to be excited about, just getting back to doing that. And I'm definitely taking a vacation.
Good for you.
Yeah.
You deserve it.
Yeah, this book tour schedule you've got is no joke. And on that, I'm curious how, if you do have a plan for eating well on the road, and if you do, what is that? How do you maintain, what I would expect is a fairly high standard of the foods that you eat while you're out and about?
Well, there's lovely food to be had everywhere. And, here's the thing. I think you just get back to basics. Some lovely eggs for breakfast, a wonderful salad, some protein. It's just, how food is. You wax and wane with where you're at. I'm in a really good place with feeling good about what I'm eating. So I think that we'll be able to just be on the road, and we'll continue, and we'll just absolutely do the best that we can.
Yeah, that's solid advice. Do the best that you can and just let go of it when it doesn't pan out. Yeah.
Because the reality is that balance is everything. And so we just, we can only do the best we can do. And we are people around here that give like 150%. So we to whatever we're doing, and we're going to continue doing that.
And this is really cool because your book tour, you're actually partnering with some really cool people all around to sort of, share conversation, or I see a lot of folks that are listed with you at different locations. What will be sort of the role of the people that are featured at these various tour sites?
Well, you mean sort of my co-stars, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your co-stars.
Yeah. So in 18 of the cities, we've selected someone to partner with, everyone from like Nam Nam Paleo, Danielle Walker. And then we've got Haley Jackson, who's the chief White House correspondent for NBC. and CB, is it CBNBC? MSNBC. Yeah,
MSNBC. Yeah.
Yeah. So she is going to be our moderator in Washington. And in every case, I partnered with people that I feel strongly about and I think will really be contributors. And I'm really, really excited about it because, we're all foodies and we like talking about food and, sharing the journey. And I think because I'm used to doing the podcast, it'll come natural to me. And on top of it, I've done a bunch of these for other authors before. So I think it's just it's a fun moment. You've got a great audience and people are really excited. And we've been so lucky that we get, sponsors that want to come along. So, there's going to be goodie bags and, just all, definitely a good time by all and some surprises. And then the best part is the crumbles come, which are, the self-named No Crumbs Left fans. And they just make everything better.
I love it. It's so cool when you create a community and you start to see the little monikers and such that everybody gives them themselves. It's super cool. And this is kicking off May 21st, correct?
It is. It is actually May 21st, kicks off in Naperville. And then we're Midwest for Chicago, Minnesota. We're New York, New Jersey, Boston. We're going to Dallas, Houston, Atlanta. We're going to LA, Pasadena, San Diego, Sacramento, San Francisco, Napa, Nashville. And then we're doing Denver, Seattle, and Portland. And then we finish in Washington, D.C.
Awesome. And I don't know if you said Napa Valley in there, but
Napa Valley, thank you. Yes.
I just see that because that's obviously that would be a super fun place to see you too. I think that we're from Northern California, so it's always awesome to be up there and get some time in wine country. So,
and the other thing about Napa Valley is we're going to be at the Cameo Theater in St. Helena, and it is the a privately held theater that's the oldest one in America, and it's beautiful and charming and credible. And I am part of the year in St. Helena, so I'm absolutely delighted to be doing it there.
Yeah, we love it there. It's so beautiful. It's close to where we grew up, so it's definitely like God's country, so to speak.
And if you guys are in any of the locations, I'd be so happy to have you as my guest.
Yes, absolutely. I'm looking at this June 9th. I think we'll be here in LA, so we'd love to come and see you. That would be so fun.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right, we will hook that up. So, Teri, tell everybody where they can find you, where they can find the book, all that good stuff.
Thank you. So it's called No Crumbs Left, and then it says recipes for everyday food made marvelous. And it's, I think, everywhere books are sold. So everything from Barnes and Nobles to Amazon, to Costco and Sam's Club. And here's the thing to remember: when you can buy small and local, it's wonderful. So if you have a wonderful local bookstore, support the little guy too.
Love it. Yes, absolutely. Which of course you would say that because that's who you are. It's like if I have got one impression from you, it's that it's all about the family style, and that includes your local people, right?
It does. I mean, I'm really complimented that Amazon has listed it as like best books for May, and Apple as best books for spring. So we're so nice when you get that acknowledgement. We're really, really happy about it.
Well, it's a reflection of you, though. I mean, I think it's really important to acknowledge that, and hopefully people around you are letting you know that when you have a vibration of really putting out what you love and what you stand for and being, authentically who you are, the people can feel it. The world is so hungry for that, and that is really what you're showing up as. So good for you, and you deserve it all.
Thank you. I'm proud to say the book is actually in its third printing, even though it hasn't officially been released yet. So the pre-orders have been off the hook, and it's really people supporting me. Getting more than one book, getting for friends and stuff. It's so humbling, and I'm absolutely delighted.
Wow. That's amazing. I'm so happy for you. I mean, really,
thank you.
It's really incredible, and you should just relish all of it.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, folks. Well, thank you for tuning in with us. Teri, we look forward to hopefully seeing you here in Los Angeles. Folks out there, make sure you go check her out. It's going to be fun, I can tell. And we'll see you soon. Bye.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Okay. Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap. I hope you guys enjoyed that podcast, and I hope that you take a little bit of time, go to Teri's website, take a look at that book tour, and if you can make it out to one, check it out. If you can't, make sure you pick up one of the books at all the places that books are sold.
Yes.
including
the little guys.
The little guys, yeah. And if you don't have a little guy, I do think IndieBound is a cool outlet if you need to buy it on the internet.
Yes.
You know, so check out the IndieBound guys, and you can get all your books over there.
Awesome. Yeehaw.
Yeehaw.
We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for being here. Bye.
Bye.